Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, January 3rd, and Mizzou men's basketball has made it through non-conference play without a Jackson State-esque loss. Thank goodness. Also, Mizzou football won the Cotton Bowl, which you should go listen to the recap of.
Music City Bowl.
Music City Bowl. Still got it on my mind. I'm never going to have the Cotton Bowl not at the forefront of my brain. You should go listen to the recap or watch the recap of that Payton and Kenny did after the Music City Bowl, broke it on down. But yeah, good vibes on the football front, and men's basketball, also good vibes because they did not lose to Alabama State in their last non-conference game. Payton, I know you watched a good chunk of this, and that was your main takeaway, right? Is that Mizzou finishes non-con unblemished. Kenny, I'd love your thoughts here too, just generally how we're feeling now. Non-con's over with, only the losses to Memphis and Illinois. Beat everyone who we were supposed to beat, and Kansas. And Payton, first and foremost, your just kind of takeaways from this Alabama State game as Mizzou wraps up non-con.
Yeah, and most importantly, they got through this game without any huge blemishes. Alabama State played them kind of annoyingly in the second half. They actually outscored Missouri in the second half, but it was mostly, you could tell by the game plan, just kind of getting some guys some minutes. T.O. Barrett played a good amount of this game. The second, or maybe really just the actual biggest thing from this game is that Caleb Grill is back in the fold. Didn't have a spectacular night. He came in, went 2 for 7 from deep, 2 for 8 from the field. They got to get his legs back under him. I think that's kind of what the big thing from this game was. The bench wasn't at its best. You can tell by just the plus minus. I mean, it was mostly the starters, Trent Pierce, Tony Perkins, Mark Mitchell kind of leading the way. But yeah, no, I wouldn't take anything too major away from any big performances in this game. It was nice to see guys like Mark Mitchell, Tony Perkins, and Trent Pierce have nice games. I thought Aiden Shaw had a really nice game as well. Again, didn't light up the score sheet, but he hit a 3-pointer. I thought he hit 2, but I guess they must have overturned one of them. So good to see that Aiden Shaw still looks confident. Good to see that Caleb Grill's back in. Hopefully he gets his shot back as he just knocks some of the rust off because they're going to need it in their next game. But yeah, like you said, biggest thing out of this, they made it through non-con play without, honestly, ahead of where I think everyone thought they were going to be. No one obviously thought they were going to beat Kansas. You thought maybe they'd get Memphis. They didn't get that. They didn't get Illinois. But they're firmly on the bubble right now. They didn't have a disaster. I think that is a very successful non-con for this team.
Kenny, are you in agreement? Did Missouri beat your expectations preseason for how they did non-con?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say that, just especially with that Kansas win. And it's one of those non-conference schedules where it's caught some flack. It's not one of the stronger ones, but there were still good games in there against Illinois, Memphis, and Kansas. At the same time, this team could have gone undefeated. You know, that's something that needs to be said as well. Of course, you can throw in like all these what ifs. You know, what if they held on against Memphis and didn't collapse in the second half? Did they hold on to something in Illinois? Did they make their free throws? You know, this team could be undefeated right now. And I think that's a good thing to continue to think about. You have to open SEC play against Auburn, which is probably the toughest opponent to do that with in your SEC schedule and your conference schedule. But I think you come away pretty impressed with what the Tigers did, especially after last season. You're in another year of just a lot of new guys on the floor, a lot of guys that are playing with each other for the first time in this kind of transfer era that Mizzou is experiencing under Dennis Gates. And I think you still come away impressed with what the Tigers accomplished.
I'll ask you guys both this to, I guess, sort of put on the spot. And I'm looking at this box score, and it makes me want to talk about one player because, of course, Anthony Robinson was out against Alabama State. By the way, Kenny, I agree with your assessment. Mizzou beat their expectations for me. But I want to go back to Alabama State for a second, Payton, because I look at this, and for me, like, you know, when I look at this roster, and yeah, I know you joke about it all the time. Dennis has his dream, having, what was it, like 8 leading scorers at certain points in games and having some of this depth. I'm curious who y'all would say, if there's one player who's maybe been the biggest maybe surprise package in a good way for this team. Because I look at a guy, for me, like Trent Pierce is one. 12 points, 8 rebounds against Alabama State. I know it hasn't been, or I know obviously he had the freshman year that he did, but the response, I think, this year has been pretty strong. He's playing around 15 minutes a game, averaging 8.5 points, shooting okay from 3, getting a couple of rebounds. I think, when you're talking about building off of a really, really poor freshman year and a bad year as a team, that can hurt a player. I like how Trent Pierce has responded. I'm curious who y'all would have as maybe a surprise player on this team from non-con.
I think Trent Pierce is a good one. I think the next step for him, especially like you said, with just how his freshman year went. I mean, he had a great first half against Memphis, but I'd like to see him play a little better against these high majors. I think that's the next step for him. He didn't play much against Kansas and didn't do much. I wasn't a big fan of how he played against Illinois, but I do agree after the freshman year he had, I mean, what he's looked like is a huge step forward for him, and it's encouraging for the future. I got to stick with Aiden Shaw for this one. Aiden Shaw I really, really did not expect to even be really in the rotation this year. Felt like he took a step backwards last year, honestly. And I just kind of thought Dennis was close to giving up. The exact opposite has really happened. He's come out. He has not put up huge volume numbers or anything, but you just know where he is on the floor at all times. Knowlton, I know you and I had like a kind of conversation off air about it. Like, he's kind of a guy that I think Dennis loves, from like kind of Dennis opened up recently about how he utilizes analytics in kind of his rotations and his decision making. And I'd be really curious to see what they say about Aiden Shaw's just off-ball performance and everything. Because again, he's not putting up like crazy numbers that would feel effective, but it just feels like he has been so much better this year. He feels like just a ferocious defender. He's really using that athleticism. He feels so much better offensively. He's more willing to take a guy to the basket. He's confident enough to take jumpers now. I have been really, really impressed with Aiden Shaw. I really hope that he is able to kind of hold up that level of performance going into SEC play, because they'll need it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think for myself, I'm going to go with someone that's a little bit older. And I think this is kind of an easy one too, to just point out. And, he's missed a couple games with that neck injury, but what Caleb Grill's accomplished, especially just in that stretch where he was the leading scorer, where, he dropped 25 points in one of his most recent games that he was playing in. I think you're kind of blown away with what he's done, because after last season, missing most of that second half with that wrist hand injury, and then comes into this season and really didn't look like himself, and just needed to get going. And you're like, okay, like this guy's got it, and maybe he'll get back in that starting rotation soon as he gets his feet under him. But at the same time, you just have this weapon that's just coming back. It's like you're adding an extra piece when you go into conference play, and I think that's going to be huge for Mizzou.
Yeah, I mean, those are both great answers. Payton on Shaw. I mean, yeah, we did talk about it. Like, it's the defensive, like, kind of leverage stuff that I think doesn't get put on the box score, that I just think makes him super good and has made him, like you said, taking an obvious leap when you thought, shoot, is this the year he kind of fizzles out and then maybe goes somewhere else and tries to figure things out. But I think you're right. The opposite has happened. I've loved what he's done defensively. And yeah, Kenny, I mean, hopefully Caleb Grill can quickly get like his feet under him, like Payton said when he's talking about Alabama State, because just as a shooter, the things he can do off ball, the amount of scoring punch that he can give you in such an unselfish kind of way, or at least in a way that he doesn't command the ball. They have these guys in Mark Mitchell and Tamar Bates who need the ball in their hands to score. Caleb Grill doesn't, and you can just have him fly around the wing and hit threes. That'd be huge. Think you could throw Anthony Robinson, obviously, in this conversation as well. He's been an absolute stud in his sophomore year. I think they have an elite guard in him in the future. But yeah, I'm loving it. Payton, you raised your mic. I saw you. Have another thing?
I'll also give just one quick shout out in these last few games to a guy that kind of had been the target of especially my ire, like early in the year. Tony Perkins has really looked good. In the last few games, he really kind of cranked it up against Illinois. There were still some iffy moments in that one, but you saw signs of life against Kansas. He started to kind of pick up his performance. Illinois, he broke out. He was really good against Alabama State as well. That is absolutely huge for them if they can get him going in SEC play, because early in the year, I mean, you were kind of like, okay, this team can still win, but it doesn't really look like Tony Perkins is going to be a part of that. But he has looked like he's found a sign of life. I think that lessens the need for Jacob Cruz to have to get going, maybe take some of the burden for Marquez Warwick as well. So Tony Perkins might be another guy I throw into. Just his late blossom kind of surprised me.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, he was one who was making me kind of nervous in the first couple of games. So, that's what you expect of a veteran. I mean, Kenny talks about these older guys with Caleb Grill that can find, a different level late on. I think that's a good sign that he as an older player can do that, because I think they're going to need him. All right, there's the kind of good. We're going to preview SEC play now, and it is not going to sound very good for the first game, because Missouri is being thrown into the proverbial fire of the SEC, which is a pretty easy thing to do. This conference, by the way, is 174-23 in non-conference play combined. It is an absolute wagon, and Mizzou is playing the team that is, I guess, trying to be the front of that wagon, the horse. I don't know where the analogy is there. Josh Gray's the horse, actually. We can't make horse puns or comparisons that aren't Josh Gray. Anyway, Mizzou's first SEC game on December 4th at 3 p.m. on SEC Network might be a grim one. They're playing the Auburn Tigers, the number 2 team in the country. They are 12-1. They would be number 1 probably by the AP poll if they hadn't lost to Duke. I got some numbers for you, fellers, and then you give me your thoughts on how Mizzou can do any sort of damage to this team. Auburn, like I said, number 2 in the country. They are number 1 in KenPom. They're number 1 in Torvik. They have the most efficient offense in the country by KenPom and the number 14 efficient defense. They lost to Duke, obviously, as their lone loss, but they have beaten Houston, Iowa State, North Carolina, Memphis, and Purdue. They're really, really good. I have some players we can touch on as well from Auburn, but how does Mizzou beat this team, guys?
I have no idea. This is the only game I look at. I don't know how you attack Auburn. I don't know how they have to go to Auburn, which is also a very slept on point in this. They have to go to one of the more crazy environments in the country to open conference play. I mean, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how Dennis responds to this game, because spoiler alert, I don't think there's any way Missouri wins this game. I really think a good outcome is that if you get to the 10-point mark or 10-minute mark in the second half, and you can still say, well, Auburn can't just let their foot off the gas yet. Because this is just, like you said, Knowlton, an unbelievable team. Going back to Torvik, I want to throw just one number at you. So they have a stat that they measure, that they kind of measure, like it's basically WAR for basketball. It's points above replacement, or basically wins above replacement for basketball. They have Missouri's top player in this metric is Anthony Robinson, who has been, I think we all agree, like an all-world player this year. He's at 3.5. Auburn has 4 players above 3.5. Janai Broom is at 6.3. Chad Baker-Mazar is at 4.7. Denver Jones 4.2. Chaney Johnson 3.9. This team is absolutely loaded top to bottom. They don't have a player that is negative in this statistic, which is, again, absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how Missouri beats them, because quite frankly, the way I would approach it is trying to take the crowd out of it completely, play slow, ugly basketball, just kind of wear Auburn out. And that is not how Missouri plays at all. If you've just watched 5 minutes of a Missouri game, you see what they try to do. They try to play frantic defense, force turnovers, get out on the run. That's just not going to work against Auburn. It's not going to work against that crowd. There's too many veterans on this Auburn team. They're not going to get punked offensively, I don't think. I don't see a way Missouri wins this one. I don't think that says a lot about Missouri. I think it's just a poor matchup on paper for them. And that's before even going into just how good Auburn is. It's just a ridiculous basketball team this year. I don't know how Missouri wins this one, Jack.
Every time we have this conversation, Peyton, and we talk about this, when we don't see an opportunity for Missouri to win this football or basketball, the Tigers always play it close for some reason. It always happens, but I'm definitely with you. I just don't see it. I think, I could make a joke. Maybe they put this game on a neutral site and make Auburn fly there in a private jet and see if they get angry at each other.
They won that game,
and
Kenny.
they still won it. That's
They
what I'm
won
saying.
that game.
They
They
beat
went
Houston.
against
Houston.
Yep, and they beat Houston.
Yep.
Premier college basketball program as well, along with Auburn. So I don't know as well. Like one of the biggest things, you talk with these recruits too, that they pick it up that this team plays fast. Mizzou plays fast at the same time, and if you can't slow them down there. But I think one of the biggest things you take from this, it is probably the hardest opener for the SEC for a team like in the middle of the road like Missouri to go to Auburn and play there right when you're starting some of this conference schedule. But I think you learn so much more from your losses, and I think that's going to be kind of a bigger thing too. I don't want to write off anyone from winning or losing this game, but I think Mizzou will learn a lot just from this game, kind of moving forward and how they'll stand in the SEC.
Yeah, there's an interesting conversation to be had there about the timing of it and whether do you look at it worryingly as like is this loss right away? You go out and get smoked. Does it kind of derail you to the start of SEC play when it's important to pick up some wins early? Or is it, like you said, Kenny, a good learning moment? It makes you better and you grow from it. I'd like to think Dennis Gates is good at coaching his team, in the way that it will make it the other way. But from this game itself, yeah, I've been watching Auburn. Obviously, Payton had all the metric stuff. That I don't think they win this game. Auburn is probably the favorite for the national title right now. Payton mentioned Janai Broom and his, 6.6 WAR or whatever.
6 points. So it's points above replacement. It's basically how much points more, like when this guy is on the floor, is this guy worth than just a regular average Joe. And Janai Broom is worth 6 points more, like alone. On his own than just a replacement level player.
He's averaging 18, 11 and a half, 3.5 assists and 2.5 blocks. That is basically Wooden Award numbers. He's probably the favorite to win it. Chad Baker-Mazara is just kind of a menace. I think Mizzou fans will remember in games before. They have a really, really good freshman who I'll throw out there too. Tahad Pettiford, good guard, is averaging like 11 and 3 a game. I would not count him out, but yeah, it's fully loaded. It is.
I mean, put it this way on Auburn. I mean, they got one of the more coveted transfers out of the portal, like in Furman guard J.P. Pegues, who most people will remember for hitting that famous shot against Virginia in the NCAA tournament. He has been a disaster there. It has not worked out at all. He's averaging less than 2 points a game. He's not even in their rotation anymore, and it has not mattered in the slightest to them. They are still... I know they're not number one in the nation right now, and I know Tennessee hasn't lost. They are the best team in the nation. They are easily the best team in the SEC. Honestly, I think Dennis Gates will be able to frame it as, look, guys, this is the hardest game we have this entire year. After this, it's all smooth sailing. That's honestly the one thing, no matter how this game goes, I think you can take out of it. It's like just, that's over with. Every other game is more winnable than this one.
Yeah. No, that's not a bad way to look at it. But yeah, this Auburn team is going to be really, really good. It'll be a good test of Missouri's mettle to see how they come out of this. So,
For Missouri to win this, Josh Gray is going to have to literally somehow credit to Josh Gray. He has actually, I think, done what Mizzou was hoping for. He kind of took Memphis's bigs out of the game for a lot of it. He slowed down Hunter Dickinson in a massive way, kind of definitely frustrated Dickinson at times in that game. And I mean, this is kind of what he's here for, is to kind of be that battle-tested SEC big. But Janai Broom and Auburn, it's just a different animal than anything else they're going to see. As good as this conference is, Auburn is a cut above everyone else.
I like the spin zone of the everything is smooth sailing from here with how good the SEC is.
I also love that ticket price disparity from tickets as low as $104 to tickets as low as $3 in the next game against LSU.
3 p.m. on SEC Network on January 4th, tip-off SEC play. It'll be a tough one for the Mizzou Tigers, but you know what? We'll see how they fight in it. Let's get, I think, a little bit more positive here too, and broaden things out, because obviously this is kind of our SEC preview pod. I mentioned how good the conference is. Mizzou, of course, like Payton said, on the bubble. I think last I checked, they were the maybe one of the first teams out in Joe Lunardi's bracket. So right on that bubble, a team, this league has 13 teams projected to be in. It's a really, really good conference, which in maybe a crazy kind of spin zone could work out well for Mizzou if it can kind of find some footing. So with that in mind, Payton, Kenny, you can choose who will go first. Also, shout out to Payton last year for getting the closest to Mizzou's actual record in SEC play. Payton went 8-10. They were 0-18. Me and Kenny both had better records than that. So pat yourself on the back for that one, Payton. Where do you see them this year finishing in conference play?
I think I said before the Illinois game, like if they win that Illinois game, they probably only have to win 7 and get in the tournament. And if they don't, they probably have to win like 8 or maybe 7 plus a conference tournament game. I still am of that mindset, and I think they'll be right around there. I think this team will win. Spoiler alert, I big bold prediction, they will win a conference game this time around. I don't think they'll go winless twice in a row. I think they'll be in that 6 to 8 or 9 win range. I'm going to go, just looking at it, I mean, like, you got LSU at home, Vanderbilt at home, Arkansas is winnable, Mississippi. There's winnable games on this schedule for Missouri. There's also very losable games because this conference is just a gauntlet. I'm going to say Missouri hovers around the 500 mark. Or no, I'm going to go 7-11. I'm going to go 7-11. I thought they were going to hover around 500. Then I thought about it. And I'm like, no, let me go 7-11.
Kenny, you think they'll be around 500?
That was my number. My number was 7-11. I guess I'll just be a little bit safer because this team hasn't, won a conference game since 2023. I'm just going to go 6-12. I will stick by it that I did want 7-11, but I'm not going to be the same number as Payton.
Here, I'll go 8-10 then, because it's basically a coin flip. If you want 7-11, I'll go 8-10, because I think they will get 7 or 8. I think the Kansas game kind of shakes off those cobwebs of like, oh my God, we haven't won a conference game. So 8-10.
That's great, because I was also going to go 7-11.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I can tell you, I'm trying to pick where I have an 8th game in here, because I went through all of them. My wins are LSU, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, South Carolina at home, and Georgia, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma on the road. I think they'll get those 7. And the 8th one, I'm trying to decide if I want to lump Ole Miss at home in there. That feels like where the 8th win would come for me. I
think I 7 or 8 wins, I'd be picking Mizzou over that Ole Miss team.
All right, then I'll go 8, and I'll go Ole Miss. But that's the other one.
And I think Missouri can beat them. I don't think Missouri gets any of the Mississippi State games. Or do they even play them twice this year?
Just once.
Just once. Thank God. I hate playing Mississippi State. Hate watching Mississippi State play basketball.
Home games are LSU, Vandy, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Auburn, Arkansas, Alabama, and Arkansas. Oh, I just said Arkansas. And Alabama and Kentucky. Those are the home ones.
Yeah. I mean, at 7-11, I still think you have a decent shot at the tournament. I mean, you probably just have to win a conference tournament game or two.
I'll go 8-10. I'll inverse what I had last year, and we'll see if the Tigers can do it. All right. There's our
Negative Nelly Kenny.
Huh?
Negative Nelly Kenny. Look at that.
What's 7-11 being the biggest hater.
Could go 1-17.
It'd be an improvement.
Oh my God.
It would be an improvement.
So bad.
They would be better than last year. All right, there you go. There's a little bit of a conference breakdown. Should we go who wins the SEC regular season? Who wins the conference?
Auburn.
Tournament? Both?
Auburn wins both. I think they're that good.
I don't always like doing that. I think there's always someone in that tournament that can kind of pull out.
I like a different tournament winner.
Let's go Auburn regular season and Alabama tournament. Give Jack some extra work.
I'm going to also, no, I'm not. I'm going to go Tennessee regular season, and I'm going to go
No way.
Florida tournament.
Oh my God, you have Auburn winning neither?
Either of them.
I think that is downright bold. I'd put that on a post-it note. I think Auburn, I know the conference regular season team usually doesn't win the tournament. Auburn is just that good to me. I think they'll buck that trend.
I'm gonna book it. I'm just gonna be different. We're gonna have some fun. Tennessee's got good defense.
Okay, here's one more bonus one, and this can be just, you don't have to explain it. You can just throw out a guess. Who is Mizzou's leading scorer in conference play? I am gonna go Mark Mitchell.
Tamar Bates.
Yeah, my mind was Mark Mitchell.
Mitchell. Okay. All right. I'm going hot takes on all those. Kenny, I was actually going to say Auburn, Alabama instead of Tennessee, Florida, but then you said it, so I want to be different. All right. There's some SEC basketball predictions. We'll obviously recap the Auburn game. Hopefully it's not too grim, but we can take some learning points like Mizzou hopefully will when they face the Tigers. But before we go to quick hits, gents, let's talk some football briefly, specifically the NFL draft, because a couple of Mizzou players announcing their intentions to go, starting, of course, with our king, Johnny Walker, the defensive end extraordinaire. He's off to the NFL. Thank you, Mizzou, in this very nice post. I'm not going to read all of it, but best of luck to Mr. Johnny Walker. How do you guys feel? You think he'll get drafted? Where do you think he'll get drafted? Have you seen any projections?
Seems like most people think he'll definitely get drafted, probably day 3, I think is what I've seen mostly. Testing could do very well for him. I don't think he's in the Hula Bowl, right? Or the Shrine Bowl. He's in the Shrine Bowl. So that's good. He'll get to maybe kind of boost his stock there. But yeah, definitely a big one that Mizzou can kind of point at as a success. And Johnny Walker, I mean, obviously, definitely as true a son as can get. He stuck with Mizzou, trusting Mizzou with his development, and it wound up being a very fruitful last 2 years. And he's going to go from 3-star with very few SEC offers to a likely NFL draft pick. So good for Johnny Walker, good for Mizzou. Just a very successful tenure.
I think a lot of people should be excited about Brian Early at the same time with kind of like these connections he's built. He only had Johnny Walker for 1 season, and it seemed like that connection stemmed for years. And, you know, they kept him around. He's kind of like the embodiment of old football. Like it's weird to say that, you know, he stuck around for all those years. I saw a lot of people saying he was just this undersized, you know, outside linebacker turned into a pretty dominant edge rusher these past 2 years. He had the longest streak with 7 consecutive games with at least 1 sack. Really just impressive season, impressive ending to his career. And at the same time, I think one place that I think he would want to go maybe too, I don't know. I don't personally know his preferences, but Tampa, I feel like that would be a really cool one. It was really a big deal for him when he got to go back there and play at the Buccaneers Stadium in the Gasparilla Bowl in 2022. What if he gets that opportunity to play there every Sunday? And I think that would be a pretty cool one probably for him and his family.
I'll definitely root for that. Yeah, I love Johnny Walker. He is definitely one of my favorite players of the last few years. It was really fun to watch him, like Kenny said, grow, become a good player. So hopefully a team takes a shot at him on day 3. And hopefully it's the Buccaneers. I love the narrative ball of that. I'm all for that. The other 2 we wanted to mention, the 2 running backs, of course, came in from the transfer portal this offseason from the Fun Belt. Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel both declaring for the NFL draft. Obviously, this is kind of a, you know, the Mizzou 1-2 punch at running back, kept the kind of pipeline of just good running backs going. How'd you guys enjoy these 2 during their 1 season? It was obviously a tall task to replace Cody Schrader, you know, from 2023, but I really liked what we got out of Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel this year.
Definitely liked that they finally embraced just having a stable instead of just trying to force one guy to be the guy. I think Mizzou definitely benefited from it was a true clash of styles. I mean, Nate Noel was definitely more of that wide zone guy, kind of home run hitter, the lightning. And then when they needed to get a few yards between the tackles, Marcus Carroll was pretty damn reliable. To the point where I'd get kind of angry when there would be a 3rd and short play call that was something that wasn't a Marcus Carroll, like, go and get 2 yards kind of carry. But good for both of these guys. I mean, they probably won't get drafted, I'd imagine. But I'd imagine like just each doing their own individual skill sets so perfectly well. I'd imagine they'd get at least a camp invite somewhere. So hopefully they get a shot at the next level. They were definitely both very productive players for Mizzou.
Like the thunder and lightning, and Marcus Carroll would be the thunder. It's a good thing to see for this offense moving forward, how well it could adapt to having two different running backs and kind of embracing those styles. Because we look at guys that they've gone after in the transfer portal, the JUCO ranks, and at the high school level, they like some of these guys that are good on the wide zone. They can get out to the outside. And then you see in this class of 2025, they got a guy who can probably do that in Brendan Haygood. And then Marquise Davis is probably going to put his head down and run someone over. So there's definitely a good look there for Mizzou moving forward. You never know if someone's going to enter the transfer portal, leave again, but it seems like the running back room just continues to churn out good guys under Looper and Drinkwitz and Kirby Moore now too. And I think there was probably, a little bit more that you wanted to see from just these running backs. Unfortunately, Nate Noel missing some games there with an injury. But I think you still have to be, as a fan, if you're a fan of this team, pleasantly surprised. Not surprised, but you just feel good about it. I mean, you should feel good about the direction of this running back room. And it wasn't just like a fluke. It kind of was a fluke for how Cody Schrader came to be, but it kind of just shows you how much development can go into just going so quickly for some of these guys that are coming in.
Yeah, it makes me confident for how you can get a guy up to speed quickly. And obviously you've got another one coming in Ahmad Hardy, and hopefully, they can kind of do the same for those two. But yeah, shout out to Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll. Thank you for your 1 year of service. We look forward to seeing your professional aspirations. Kenny.
I got one quick thing just so people know if they're keeping tabs on it. That's 6 Mizzou players. Of course, these 3 had their eligibility run out, so it's really the only thing they could do was go to the NFL draft. We can lump in Marcus Clark, cornerback, which I don't even think he was there for the bowl game. We didn't see him on the field. And you can throw Armin Membu and Luther Burden in there as well. Luther, who actually was at the game. I don't think Payton and I got to mention that in our recap. That was pretty cool to see him there.
Yeah, he was there. He was in his jersey and everything. So
love it.
I don't know. I don't think Theo Weiss has officially announced that he's in the draft either, but yeah. He's going to be in, obviously.
Yeah, he'll be another one to throw in there. We'll give him his spotlight when that gets there because he deserves one too. But yeah, shout out Nate Noel, Marcus Carroll, Johnny Walker. Good luck in the pros to those 3. All right, good Mizzou segment, fellas. I think we should segue over, finish the show with quick hits. Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish out the show. We'll start the quick hits. Jerseys of the week. Kenny, jersey of the week.
Just a quick one here, 4 quick hits. But jersey of the week, Dalen Carnell announced on New Year's Eve that he will be returning for his final season of eligibility with the Tigers in 2025. Didn't walk at senior day. Even his dad posted, the reason he didn't walk is kind of leaves that door open if he wants to come next year, see if there was an invite to any of these Senior Bowl camps. Looks like he didn't really get one, but he feels like he's been this unsung hero, even, going back to 2022 when he was, stepping up in that star position behind Martez Manuel. And he's just been probably this kind of staple of the defense ever since. So it's probably great for the Tigers that they have Dalen back next season.
Probably their best defender in the fold for next year, I'd say. I mean, you could have argued maybe this year as well. But I mean, just like you said, unsung MVP for this Mizzou team. Always just feels like he comes up with a huge play. I'm a huge Dalen Carnell guy. I think if he isn't on draft people's radar, he needs to get on their radar. This guy is just, I feel like he is a player. If he's not a Sunday player, I don't know who is. Yeah,
he's a stud. I'm really excited to have him back in the fold. This is super great news to get to start your new year. I mean, shout out Dalen Carnell. Hopefully he can come back and keep being dominant, get himself to the league, get Mizzou some wins. Payton, your jersey of the week, sir.
I'm going to go with Donovan Oligbode, Missouri's incoming freshman. I believe he's an early enrollee, correct, Kenny? Yes, so that'll be great for him. He will be playing. We're recording it as he's about to take the field, but by the time you listen to this, he'll have already played in the Under Armour All-American game. Sorry, there's just a bunch of words on this graphic, so I don't know exactly.
That before we went on air, believe it or not.
Yeah, Under Armour next
All-American.
All
Next
America.
All-American. But it says Under Armour All-American game right there
that's
under it.
incorrect. It's All America game.
Either way, Donovan Olugbode's in it, and he's
Bruh.
playing on ESPN too. Kenny, I believe he's been getting some pretty good reviews out at practice this week, has he not?
Yeah, he made a one-handed catch on a dig route. I didn't see a video anywhere of it. Read about it a couple times. John Garcia and Greg Smith are down there for Rivals. Pointed out that he has been one of the top performers. He's not a very talkative guy. He just kind of does his own business. And the coaches there at IMG just loved him. I loved everything about him, kind of what he's going to bring to the next level. And getting on campus early is something big you've seen from IMG kids. No real reason to stay back unless you really need to finish those credits. We can finish them at school as well at Mizzou. But he's in a good spot. He's going to this gives him an opportunity to get on the field early. And I've seen some people, concerned, you look at someone, even like last year, you're seeing guys like Courtney Crutchfield, who didn't get on the field. Unfortunate for Courtney, he wasn't an early enrollee, but he went back home to Arkansas. He's going to, continue his journey there. But to get Donovan on the field early is going to be a big deal. I mean, he has a skill set to contribute early on.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. Looking forward to watching his highlights from this game. Hopefully he can make a few big catches and, generate a little bit more buzz before he joins the Mizzou receiver room. So shout out to Donovan Olugbote in what is the bowl game called again, Payton?
Under Armour next All-America game.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't hear an N, so he's right.
Oh.
Yeah. All-America game.
You did it, Payton. Well done. All right. My jersey of the week, we're going some non-Mizzou, but college football related jersey this week. It's going to be Colin Simmons from Texas A&M. I think he's a linebacker. I actually didn't look up his position. He, of course, I said Texas A&M, Texas. He, of course, was playing against Arizona State in the, oh my gosh, what bowl was it? Peach Bowl. I couldn't remember the bowl game. I'm off at this time. He was playing the Peach Bowl against Arizona State with Texas. They were obviously up by a fair bit at halftime, and he trolled Cam Scadaboo, Arizona State's really good running back, of course. I guess reposting something of Cam Scadaboo saying, "I'm done with this." Reposted on his story at halftime of the game with the poop emoji thrown up there as well. You can see that if you're watching on the YouTube. Yeah, Arizona State very nearly made this even worse headline because they almost came back and won. Cam Scadaboo, I think, didn't he have more total yards in Texas as a team? I heard that as a stat at one point. Had like 3 touchdowns.
Maybe in the second half. I don't think that was for the game.
Maybe it was just the second half. Absolutely wild that he why we have the phones out at halftime? This seems like a really easy some coach. There are so many staff on the sidelines. Surely someone is the phone police guy. That makes sure this doesn't happen. Almost disaster for Colin Simmons. He's getting the jersey, but it's more Cam Scadaboo that won this battle, even though Texas did end up winning the game.
Yeah, you're in the college football playoff. Put the phone down. Lock it in for a few hours, man. This is way too damn important to be trolling in the middle of the game.
Would you guys have done this if you're in Colin Simmons' shoes?
I think I'm gone.
I think Payton would have. Payton would have done it. Yeah, I wish Arizona State would have won. What a crazy game, too. Kenny, you were watching, I know. Auburn, 2 missed field goals.
Yeah, I got a tweet out on our unwritten account. Kept saying missed field goal in Auburn just takes me back to 2022 with Harrison Muse.
What is targeting anymore? Also, at the end of that,
it's arbitrary. It's not a real thing.
No one knows. That was an insane call. All right.
I like no cap, and he's the main bird.
Next up, Shawnee's main bird of the week. Kenny, you're Shawnee's main bird of the week.
We talked about this on Monday's show, but DJ Smith is officially announced as the defensive coordinator, the next defensive coordinator for App State. I love how they used a photo of him at Mizzou with the App State just logo put onto his Mizzou hat. Like there aren't photos out there probably of him on staff at App State, but still pretty fun to see. But I talked to a couple of recruits. I think I mentioned that on Monday. They seem in good spirits about it. You know, you always commit to the program, not to the coach. And so the Tigers seem like in a good spot with guys like Dante McClellan, who's coming in as an early enrollee from the state of Ohio. My bird connection, couldn't really find one. He's only really coached at Mizzou and App State. And my connection was that in his final game with Missouri, he beat Iowa. I think that's a good one to go with.
Down the Hawkeyes.
Sure, man.
He had a very nice goodbye tweet. Drinkwitz also had a very nice goodbye tweet. Definitely felt like a nicer break off than the Blake Baker situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a step up, so hopefully DJ Smith makes the most of it. Maybe it comes back as Mizzou's DC in a couple of seasons. Who knows? Could be fun. Payton, your main bird this week.
My bird of the week is going to be Missouri gymnastics head coach Shannon Welker. Shannon Welker had his contract extended through 2029. Laird Veach announced that on Thursday. My connection to a bird is that Shannon Welker used to be an assistant coach at Bowling Green, the Falcons, and now he'll continue to helm what has been probably one of the more consistently successful programs for the past number of years in Missouri.
Yeah, good news for sure. He's been there since 2013, so loyal Tiger. You don't see that in coaching these days. All these carousels, everyone jumping ship. So hopefully Shannon Welker can lead Mizzou to a natty in gymnastics soon. My main bird is Iowa, and I might expose myself here if you guys said this stat in your recap. I haven't listened to it yet, but hopefully you didn't. I'm doing it for the first time. I just saw this funny stat. Obviously, Iowa lost to Mizzou in the Music City Bowl. Since 2020, this is the 33rd game where Iowa has scored 21 plus points. This is the first game the Music City Bowl was where Iowa lost after scoring over 21 points. Welcome to the SEC Ball, Iowa. There you go.
Yeah, don't ask how the rest of the SEC is doing against the Big Ten and bowl games.
Hey, you know what? Beating your Big Ten opponent in the postseason isn't for everybody.
You know, when they say Missouri doesn't belong in the SEC, that's what people mean.
Yeah, it's because
they're the only team that can beat a Big Ten team in a bowl game.
Yeah, but I just thought that was pretty funny. Insane sicko ball that Iowa plays. It was a good game though. If I can throw my 2 cents, I know I wasn't on the recap. That was a fun watch. I had like kind of lower expectations. I did forget to text Payton because I vividly remember him saying I would be shocked if Iowa gets out of the teens, and they had 17 points in a quarter and a half.
They had 21 at halftime.
Yeah, so they broke that, but thankfully Missouri scored more. So nice win for Mizzou. Best things you learned, Payton. What did you learn?
Best thing I learned this week: the New York Times had an interesting.
Too cheap to subscribe to, apparently.
Yeah, the New York Times had an article about in the quarter zip era, these coaches still wear suits, and it's about the attire that college basketball coaches are wearing, about how it's now the quarter zip era. Konzo Martin, of course, later in his tenure went quarter zip. But in this article, they mention all the coaches that still wear suits. Mick Cronin was kind of the headliner, and Dennis Gates was in here. He had a very nice quote about why he still chooses to wear suits. You'll have to read the New York Times to get the full article, but the gist was that Dennis wears suits because he tries to, like, when he's meeting with recruits and everything, or people see him for the first time, he wants to leave a good first impression. We've talked about this before on the show and just in private. Like, we're a fan of like Dennis still wearing suits. I love that Dennis still wears suits. I think it's cool. Not even just like classy. I just think it's kind of cool that he's just over there in a gangster suit while all these other guys are coming in quarter zips.
It kind of feels like more, I mean, like, they say like dress for the job you want, or like, some people, I think their attire kind of dictates. Like, I know for me, like when I'm dressed fancier and going to something, like if I have to work, like I feel like it makes me work a little bit like harder. I don't know. I feel like it's like, I don't know. I trust Dennis in the suit. Like, I just think it's he's got the suit on. I know he cares. I know he's put in work to coach this team up for the game. I don't know. I like it too, Payton. That is a very fun story. Good that Dennis was a part of it. That's our classy coach, our classy king, Dennis. Got this rocking the suit.
For someone who grew up on Syracuse basketball and going to those games and seeing Jim Boeheim, I think it was one of those funny things that, even like the people like in my family that lived in Syracuse, they would tell me, this was like way before coaches started wearing the quarter zips, and he would wear sometimes like sweatpants with his suit jacket top because he just didn't want to wear this nice clothes, but he would just be like, dark enough to where it kind of looks like it matched his suit. But sometimes he would just kind of wear sweatpants or
That's
really
awesome.
really like comfortable dress pants because he just didn't want to get into a suit.
Boeheim was the first. He was the first rendition of what people did on Zoom during COVID when you wear the nice shirt and the sweatpants on the bottom because you can't see it on your computer. He just did it shamelessly.
His pajama pants.
Yeah,
you can't see it.
He just did shamelessly. How do you guys feel about? I've had debates with these people or with people about this. How do you guys feel about the suit and like cool sneakers look, or are you strictly dress shoes with the suit?
I don't hate the sneakers look at all. I'm not gonna down that. I think you can rock some like trainers with a suit jacket and everything. But I'm more of a dress shoes guy. I think Dennis is a dress shoes guy, correct?
Yeah, I think he does dress shoes.
Yeah, I don't know. Basically, I think the one thing we can't doubt about Dennis is the man knows basketball coaching attire. So whatever Dennis does, I trust.
Yes, I completely agree.
As a major Applewhite disciple, one of my biggest things if you're not wearing the dress shoes, I think everybody like on staff should be wearing the same, Nike apparel or whatever your school whatever your school wears, Adidas, Under Armour, Nike, you wear those ones and you guys all wear the same shoes. I can understand basketball players not doing that. You just wear the Nike shoes that you want to wear, but I think that's a smart thing to do when you're on staff. You always want to look the same.
Yeah, I don't mind the matching throughout the staff. That's a good take. I'm pro dress shoe or pro tennis shoes and the suit. Oh, Payton.
Follow-up question,
Yes.
Mr. Major Applewhite disciple. If a player is not playing in a bowl game, would he be allowed to wear a jacket on the sideline if it's cold?
That wasn't the issue. The issue was he was wearing the same jacket as the coaches, and it could confuse the players that are looking over at the sideline, and they see him, and he's not doing anything.
Ooh, listen to the Major Applewhite disciple.
And they are
the
fine
Major
now.
Applewhite disciple was ready for that one.
Major Applewhite at Oliver, they are okay.
That is true. I think they did make up.
Kenny, what'd you learn?
Best thing I learned this week, and this is just more so just a best thing, additional one for Jack. And this is Marquise Johnson announced also on New Year's Eve that he will be returning for the next season. I sent this tweet to you guys, and I was like, was there any indication that he wasn't coming back? I mean, after a great performance in that game, over 100 yards, I'm sure there were a lot of guys, not a guys, but there were definitely schools that were like piqued interest, seeing him perform with more snaps and more opportunities to get the football. At the same time, I think, going into that bowl game and coming out of it, I don't think there was really any indication that he was going to leave or enter the portal.
I mean, was there any indication that Kawan Lacey was going to enter the portal when he did?
What?
That was very different spots for where they are in their career, though. This is a guy, Marquise Johnson, who is actually contributing a lot more, especially just after that game, too.
True.
I don't mind hearing it, straight from the horse's mouth that he's not going anywhere. I think it just, it's in a world of chaotic college football carousels. It's it's not a bad thing to just get a straight up, I'm not going anywhere. Plus, yes, as a Speedy Keese truther, I'm very excited that we'll have him for another year. I love to see his touchdown in person. He's a stud, even if maybe his role is a little bit more diminished than what I thought it would be eventually during his freshman year. I am still excited to have him back. He'll be a good part of the wide receiver room. Him and Prez. We didn't get a Prez catch, did we? I think it was his lone target was an incompletion, right? That was a bummer.
Yeah.
I wanted a Prez catch. All right. My best thing I learned this week, speaking of the evolving world of college football and carousels and portals, this best thing I learned comes from the world of Louisville football. It could have also been a Maine bird, perhaps. Their punter skipped their bowl game because of an NIL deal. Brady Hodges is the punter's name. Opted out of the Sun Bowl because of the Cardinals NIL collective did not pay money promised to him in September. He posted on social media during the game in which they're playing Washington. He said, "I graduated December 13th and had every intention of being with the team had they held up their end of the deal." He did not disclose how much was owed. So there you go, Matthew Saluka. And now Louisville punters are holding out of bowl games, Kenny. I thought this was also fitting for you as a special teams guy.
I didn't know punters were making NIL money unless they were someone coming over from Australia and heralded as this great punter.
They're only heralded as a great punter if they're coming over from Australia.
Yeah, he's from Knoxville.
This guy wasn't even averaging 40 yards a punt, and he's leaving because of NIL?
He was their primary punter and holder for the last 2 seasons.
Oh, my God, dude.
College football, ladies and gentlemen. College football. Yeah, I thought that headline struck me when I was looking through for what I've learned this week. So there you go. That's all I got, unless you have any. We didn't get any takes about the Ohio State-Oregon game. Not that there was much to take away from that. Tough one for the Ducks. Tough one for the Ducks. You got nothing, Payton? I thought you were gonna roast Oregon.
This is a Mizzou podcast.
We can talk college football. I just talked about a Louisville punter. Payton, tell your joke. Let's get out of here.
Dan Lanning walks into a bar in Pasadena, California. I'm kidding. I don't have a joke for that. I was going to try and roast the Ducks like you wanted.
I did. I was looking for something.
I didn't watch much of that game either. Guys, what kind of bug can tell time? This comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show.
What kind of bug can tell time? I don't know.
A clockroach.
Correct, Kenny. Good job.
Bang, Kenny. Well done. All right. That'll do it for the unwritten rule for another show. We will recap the Auburn game as best we can. Hopefully it's not too painful for the Tigers, but enjoy the game nonetheless. We'll have plenty of off-season football coverage to cover as well. Subscribe here on YouTube if you're watching. Follow us on any whatever podcast listening platform that you're listening on. And give us a follow on Twitter. Kenny tweets. Kenny's got some good stuff cooked up in the last couple of days. We've been popping off on the Twitter. So give us a follow. Or sorry, x.com, the everything app. This is what I'm supposed to call it now. All right. That'll do it for the unwritten rule. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.